going to call the Tuesday, February 21st, 2023 meeting of the Gardner City Council Finance Committee to order. The clerk will please call the roll.
President Kaczynskis.
Present.
Councilor Ron Cormier.
Present.
Councilor Dunlawitz.
Present.
Is anyone recording tonight's meeting? Okay. We will begin with the acceptance / correction to the minutes of prior meetings of the August 31st, 2022 Finance Committee meeting. Is there a motion?
Motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Ron Cormier, seconded by Councilor Dunlawitz to accept the minutes as presented. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item 10894, an order appropriating $60,000 from free cash to the Mayor's Department Professional Services account. We have Mayor Nicholson here and also Chris Coughlin.
Nice to see you all.
We don't see you as often as we used to, so it's nice to have you back.
Nice to be here.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Madam President. So this is something that came as a result of some conversations that both DPW Business Manager Chris Coughlin and I had, as well as the Planning Department and the Police Department. There are just so many new grant opportunities that have come into play recently with the federal legislation as a result of the pandemic, through the CARES Act, the American Rescue Plan, the Inflation Reduction Act, I think there's like 7 different federal pieces of legislation that have created these new grant funds. And what it's done is we do have staff that habitually do write grants as part of their jobs, most prominently Mr. Coughlin with his work as a DPW business manager, and that's how we received the $1 million federal earmark that we just got for the water main transmission line. Was Chris sitting down and working with the federal delegation and writing that and submitting that into the federal budget. But there's so much going now that we're actually missing funds because we just can't keep up with the number of new applications that are there. We have the availability and capacity on staff right now to do the grants that we have, that we normally see year after year, but there's so much one-time funding that is not going to be repeated now that I just want to make sure that we're not losing any money for the city. And Chris can certainly talk more about that just on his perspective and working with the grants that we already get emails from our federal delegations office. Why don't you do that and I'll get back to the...
Yeah, sure. So just to add to what the mayor said, there's so many acronyms now for all the different grant programs. They're sending emails out daily. Just on the water and sewer side alone, the mayor mentioned the $1 million we received for the transmission main. We're likely to receive another $1.5 million for the wastewater plant in the next couple of weeks. But that's sort of just the tip of the iceberg. There's grants out there, fire, police, a ton for infrastructure, especially a lot of bridge money coming out right now. So really, it's easy to pay for itself, I think, just having folks to sit down, write the grants, just so we don't miss them, because I think it's sort of a rare opportunity to have so much money available. It'd be nice to get as much as we can.
This is something that the idea for, at least my idea for this, came from mimicking what the administration is doing at the state level. Governor Healy in her inaugural address said that she is going to be doing something similar with the Commonwealth, because how a lot of these federal grant programs are working is there's direct grant applications for cities and towns to apply directly to the federal government, but there's also some applications that the states have to compete for the funding as to how much each state gets, and then the states then create their own grant programs with those funds. So she is doing this on the federal level, and quite frankly, I just thought it was a good idea to follow. If there's something out there we should be doing. So what my plan is we're working with the Central Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission. They are a quasi-government entity because they are publicly funded through the direct local technical assistance funds that the Commonwealth provides each year, that the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development gives to the state's Department of Housing, Community Development and Housing each year. They are mainly a planning agency, but part of their staff now is grant writing. So they have staff that is specifically trained for grant writing, whose job it is to basically scour these different databases that these grant funds are available in and see what fits and what doesn't. So one of the things that we've done is compile a list of all of our projects basically through our capital improvement plan that we do every year through our engineering office that's required by city ordinance. Send that to them, as well as any ideas of projects, our current project list. The department heads every 6 months send me an updated list of all the projects that they're working on, what the status of those projects are, if they're funded, and what the budgets are, if they're not funded, and if the plans are those there. Basically what we do is work with CMRPC forward those along as we can, and basically use that so that when they're looking in these databases, they can see what ticks for Gardner and then write those applications for us, and then we just have to administer the project at that point. So it takes the largest chunk out of it, so we can worry more about the administration side of things, but not be so tied up in administration that we miss the millions of dollars that could come as a result of this.
Thank you. So how did you come up with the number 60,000?
Working with them, we asked basically what would a normal DLTA fund, DLTA, Direct Local Technical Assistance Fund, be with this. It's an hourly rate of the staff members who are there. The lead grant writer is who we would be able to go with this, because I wanted to make sure that we had someone who is at a high level. That's also why we're going with CMRPC, the Central Mass, instead of the Montechusett Regional, who is our normal district planning commission, is because they just didn't have the capacity nor a high enough level staff member who I would feel comfortable with the expertise in grant writing with it. So it's an hourly rate of up to, I believe, $20 an hour for writing these grants, and that's one of the other reasons why I put up the full 60,000 rather than doing it a piecemeal, 20,000 at a time. As I thought about that too, is because where these are very technical applications, particularly when you get into the federal side of things, I wanted to make sure that we didn't run out of funds and then have them have to stop and not be able to submit an application, but rather get us the best bang for our buck. I think this should get us through the end of the calendar year. Since this is a free cash appropriation, it's not subject to having to close at the end of the fiscal year because we can encumber free cash appropriations because they are for specific projects rather than a general fund appropriation that's not for a specific purpose that has a price tag with it or a contract with it. The planning commissions are exempt from procurement in 30B, so it is something that it's considered the Commonwealth already having gone out to bid for these purposes because they are state-funded agencies. So again, we do get a lower price because of that as well.
Thank you. And then who would be the liaison to manage this person?
Colin in my office.
Okay.
And it would be a contracted person, not a city employee. And basically what it would be is, and the reason why I would say Colin in my office rather than someone like Chris or Deputy Chief Maroney or Jessica DeRoy is because they're, Chris is working on the infrastructure programs, the water, sewer, the transportation, everything like that. Jess is looking at the economic development stuff. Nick is looking at the police department, public safety side of things. Same thing with the fire department and with the stuff that Chief LaGoya has been doing. I'd rather have one point person collect all those from the city side and send those off so that we can know what we're applying for than have 12 different conversations happening at the side and no one knows who's applying for what. So that centralize at city side and work with that person one-on-one to make sure that we can get the best idea on what's going on, and then have that person choose if they need to reach out to Chris, to the chief, to someone else to get the more fine-toothed details after that.
Thank you. Any more questions? Any other questions, comments from the committee?
Do you see? Sorry, go ahead, Councilor.
Well, the one question I had was, you mentioned the capital improvement committee. I think we're meeting next week on that, as a matter of fact. Will all of the items be capital improvement projects that have been?
Not all. The entire capital improvement project will be sent to them because we don't even know if there'll be a grant program that fits everything that's on the capital improvement program. So for instance, I think the top one on the capital improvement list right now is a new administration building at the airport. While the FAA may have new grant funding available for that, I don't know. But we don't know where to look for it either. But the ordinance has defined items on the capital improvement plan as items with a value of over $25,000 that have a life of over 10 years. To me, there's a lot of other projects that could fit into grant funding, such as moving the utilities underground in South Gardner in the village center, different pump station rehab projects, the bike trail extensions, the new disc golf course that's being constructed at Bailey Brook Park, things of that nature that could fit into these grant programs that are not in the capital improvement plan. We plan to send those as well, and that's why I've asked I've planned to send them the regular 6-month department head reports that I collect anyway from the department heads.
Can I add one thing? Yeah. A lot of these grants are sort of little ticky-tack projects that you don't necessarily think of. Like we had one through DOT a few weeks ago for new flashing solar-powered school signs, school zone signs, where it might not be on the capital improvement project, but just simply writing it, and it looks like we're going to get 10 or 15 grand worth of free signs just one of those little things that would normally fly under the
Yeah.
radar, you might not notice, and then
Yeah, people.
it's an easy pickup that we probably would have paid out of pocket for, and they're
Right.
handing them out.
Yeah.
So, I think there's a lot of things like that.
Thank you. Counselor?
Is it just limited to the capital improvement
Yeah.
plans? No, so anything else is going to be added to? and
Correct.
Messages or information will be sent out to all departments, be like, hey,
Yes.
what do you need?
Yep.
Please let us know.
Yeah, in fact, if we go through with the service, one of the first things is the individual Siddhartha from CMRPC, along with their executive director Janet Pierce and their CEO Patricia Settles, would basically, the three of them and myself, be meeting with each department head one-on-one to go over what their goals are for the department, so that there's just a generalized idea. So if we miss something,
And with these programs, the federal programs that we're applying the grants from, I'm working on the assumption that they don't necessarily sunset at the end of this calendar year. Would this be something coming back possibly for more? And you said we're going to parse this out for this year, but
yeah, most of these programs are one-year programs
Okay.
made through these different bills that are there.
okay.
Particularly, I can tell you one of the ones that my office is looking at right now is the municipal solar bank. That's only available up until the end of, I think June 2025 is when that program expires, which is where the federal government will pay up to 40% of all costs to put solar on municipal buildings. That's something that's new, that hasn't existed before and probably won't exist again. So we're seeing if there's ways that we can take care of that, particularly with the new community center at Waterford Street School, to see if that'll eat away at some of the electricity costs that are there, to make it more manageable for the tenants that are there, and lower the city's costs in other city buildings as well. So where that program has a specific sunset on it, I want to make sure we can get involved in that before the sunset expires.
Thank you.
Further questions, comments from the committee? I think this is a great proposal, and anything that comes from this, and, we get, one of the questions you get all the time, people love to see things going on in the city, but then they assume that they're paying for it with their tax dollars, and it is, it's coming from them one way, it's coming from the state or federal money, it is, but they always, those questions come up a lot. It's great to see the improvement, they want to know where it's coming from, and I think you do a really good job, and you're also being really transparent when we do get help from our state and federal partners, and I think this is another way to be able to showcase that the efforts that you and your department heads give to be able to do that, because these grants aren't given to everybody, and you have to make yourself aware of them, and this is another effort to do that, so I support it.
I mean, one of the questions that came to mind initially was, we do have grant writing capabilities in departments like the Chris, police station, and so on. This would be to supplement as opposed to supplant.
Correct.
So Chris will still be writing
Yeah,
grants.
there's a lot out
Water
there.
lines
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
sewer lines and
Yeah,
sewer
certainly.
improvements, as well as community development.
I believe between now and is it July, I think there's 2,700 federal infrastructure grant applications alone, and that's just for infrastructure, traffic, water, sewer, and normally we're lucky if it's 2,700 because of these new
Yeah.
bills that are there. So it's one of those we just can't keep up with.
Yeah, the price tag on it, with all these programs, and then many of them, as you said, sunsetting shortly in the scheme of things, we get $60,001 that we wouldn't have had otherwise. It's already paid for itself, and
Yeah.
you would think it would be more than that if we're
Yeah, it's
applying
easy.
this many more.
Yeah.
It seems to be money, or would be money well spent.
Well, if it doesn't prove itself, it doesn't get refunded.
Exactly. Exactly. And then the way I take it too is we put $25,000 in for the DPW business manager position and got $1 million earmark as a result in it. So Chris has already taken
I'm
care
good
of
for
himself for the next couple of
40
years.
Just lounge about.
40 or 45, that's great.
Just got another 10
Yeah.
too for the signs. 15. I move to recommend this appropriation to full council.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Janela, seconded by Councilor Conner to recommend passage of the order to the full council. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes.
Take care.
Item number 10895, in order appropriating $150,000 from free cash to the fire department new equipment for truck and house. Chief Leroy is joining us. Mayor Nicholson. This is regarding, received a letter, as we typically do from the mayor, purchase of a new heavy rescue truck for the Gardner Fire Department, using ARPA funding, and you want to expand on that?
So the truck was purchased utilizing our ARPA funding through the American Rescue Plan Act. This is the equipment that would go on the truck. And the chief can go into much more detail than I can in terms of, you know, the jaws of life and the car proper devices and things like that you respond to accidents with. But one of the main reasons why we're putting this up right now rather than when the truck is in is the truck is still about 12 to 14 months out from completion. It is currently being constructed down in Pennsylvania, but a lot of this equipment has a 12-month lead period time due to supply chain issues. So we'd like to get that now. That way it is on hand by the time that the truck gets here, so we can make the truck just road ready once it arrives rather than having to wait to equip it. Chief.
Yeah, so as you know, we do have 3 vehicles on order with the ARPA funding. The new ambulance, which the current ambulance that it's going to be replacing, all the equipment from that is going to be transferred to the new one. There's really no expense.
Because that one's relatively new.
Correct, right. And then the second truck that we're replacing was engine 2, which was a 2011 pumper. And the vast majority of the equipment on that truck was in good condition, fairly new, and is being moved to the new truck. So then the third truck is the heavy rescue truck, which is much older. It's 1996 vintage. A lot of the equipment on it is older and obsolete, basically, at this point. Our apparatus committee, which consists of myself, the captain, 2 department mechanics, and 1 of our technical rescue specialists. I didn't participate in this part of it, but they evaluated all the equipment on the engine and the heavy rescue to determine if it was usable, meets the mission, and should be moved to the new truck. And they provided an extensive list of that evaluation. And this is kind of where we're at with what needs to be replaced.
Basically everything.
I wouldn't say everything. There is some equipment that's being moved from the old heavy rescue to the new one. I would say that it's a vast majority of it that needs to be replaced. A lot of it, you know, is aged to the age of the truck, which is in the mid-90s. The newer equipment that has been replaced over time because of equipment failures will be moved to the new truck. But this is kind of what we came down to that we need to replace. And the heavy rescue truck, it carries all our technical rescue equipment, the jaws of life, ice and water rescue equipment, high and low angle rescue equipment. And one of the big items in here is vehicle stabilization.
That's the one that caught my eye.
Yeah.
65,000.
And lifting equipment. It is a lot of money, but it came to light recently when we had a car accident on West Line Street in downtown Gardner, and that only involved 1 vehicle, and we didn't really even have adequate stabilization equipment to stabilize that vehicle properly in the precarious position that it was in with 2 people trapped in it. We ended up having to call mutual aid for additional stabilization equipment. So this package, what we have here, would give us enough equipment to stabilize 2 vehicles. So if you had a multi-vehicle accident with multi-vehicles rolled over, we'd be able to safely stabilize 2 vehicles or 1 larger vehicle, which we really don't have the capabilities to do now. That's the Paratech equipment, which is the highest single ticket item.
On the bottom, yeah.
And really, you know, it came to light what limited capabilities we have now on the current truck, so it really needs to be upgraded. The other higher ticket items on the list are new radios, RIT packs, which is the emergency air supply for trapped or down firefighters that are running out of air. And that's really the highest ticket items. One other thing that, you know, we talked about a small contingency fund in that. Of course, I've already identified one item that we missed. in the pricing, and that was undercoating vehicles, which we've had in the last several years. We've had huge corrosion problems with these trucks that they're expected to last 20+ years, and just the corrosion is really eating them up. So we've started undercoating the vehicles at delivery. It's an extra cost, but over time it's going to preserve the running gear and the chassis and everything on the underside of the trucks.
Do you have any idea of the price?
It's $2,700 per vehicle, so it would fit within the, certainly within the,
Right.
yeah, and that's.
Well, the only real question I had was based on a lack of knowledge, was that 55,000 or 65,000. That kind of like opened my eyes when we get to that.
Yeah, I have an itemized list of that quote, which I should have included in the original package.
No, that's all right. I mean, I kind of thought that's what it was. But
Yeah.
the truck won't do you any good unless you have the equipment that you need.
Right.
And I'm sure 25 years ago, some of this stuff wasn't even thought of, perhaps.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
In
Yeah.
its infancy.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we recommend, particularly with this as a ARPA-funded vehicle, ready for passage.
Motion made by Councilor Ronco, seconded by Councilor General, to recommend passage to the full council. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chief.
Appreciate it.
Item 10896, an ordinance to amend the City of Gardner, Chapter 22, entitled Assessing Department.
No money.
Welcome.
Good evening.
We have Mary Nicholson. I don't know if you or Christine want to go first, but it's up to you.
This just came as a conversation.
Christine Kumar, our city assessor.
This just came as a conversation that Chair Kumar had with me about the assessing department and the ordinance that governs the department and how current operations don't mimic the way that the ordinance was originally written. So looking at trying to tie that in there. When this ordinance was first proposed, back a long time ago, I think I put the actual year in my letter. It didn't say which one of the board members had to be the full-time employee and things of that nature. So just trying to tie it into modern standards and what we have with the department and how it operates in conjunction with state law. And Chris can talk a lot more in detail with that.
Actually, not a lot to say. It just really is a little more concise to how we operate today.
Thank you.
Just align our actual operating standards with the ordinance.
Questions, comments?
Make a motion, we recommend passage for first printing. Second.
Yeah.
For the council to do so.
Motion made by Councilor Cormier, seconded by Councilor General, to recommend the item be sent for printing. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Thank you.
Doesn't take long.
I know, right?
Money.
Take care.
Item number 10897, in order of taking for easements temporary and or permanent by eminent domain for purpose of the Uptown Road reconstruction, 28 Central Street. I think we should consider all of these at the same time for the same purpose, just different properties. Mary Nicholson, unless you think that you have
That's
information on each individual one.
Fine by me, Madam
So
President.
it's for 28 Central Street, 13 Elm Street, 22 Elm Street, 23 Elm Street, 9 Green Street, 15 Green Street, 12 Pearl Street, and 16 Woodland Avenue. Items 10897, 10898, 10899, 10900, 10901, 10902, 10903, 10904.
Let's drop with the numbers. One question.
Yes.
These are all temporary apprentices. There's only one.
There's one permanent.
Which one is it?
Uh,
Kind of rummaged around, I didn't.
I
missed
will
this.
hold that up for you.
Gee, I'm not the only one that doesn't know.
I know it's in the allocations for funding that was given last week.
No.
As I looked that up, just to throw this out as well, this was related to the funding that was approved at the previous meeting of the council. These have all been approved by the law department. That's why the law department sent the final letter as well. saying that that was, I'll give in there, and if I can,
That's all right.
okay, my apologies.
I can live without that.
I can get it to you by the time of the actual council meeting, that way
I
we
was
can.
going to say,
Yeah.
yeah, for the council meeting.
Make a motion to recommend
Second.
passage of the orders.
Motion made by Councilor Cormier, seconded by Councilor General to recommend approval of the orders to the full council. Items 10897, 10898, 10899, 10900, 10901, 10902, 10903, 10904. Is there discussion on motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Is there any new business?
Move to adjourn.
And with passage of that, that will get us in alignment for
For the time period.
the state to put that out to bid.
Yes. Madam President, just for the Finance Committee's knowledge, as of Friday, so before this morning's weather event and Thursdays, we are $384,000 in the deficit for our snow and ice account. I'll still plan on April to send up a free cash appropriation to fill that for the council.
As of today, you said that?
As of Friday, so that's before today's
Okay.
salting that we had to do and then whatever we get on Thursday.
384 deficit,
Yes,
so that means didn't we appropriate
300,000,
So 684
yes.
grand.
Almost mild winter, they said. Right? They say.
Salt is expensive.
Thank you.
So it's expensive and it always hits on the weekend.
Yes.
Anything further? Motion made by Councilor General to adjourn. Second by Councilor Cormier. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Meeting stands adjourned. Thank you.